Hey guys, welcome to the channel and welcome back to another video. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. If you can, give me a thumbs up and let me know you can hear me, guys, and let's jump into it. Today I want to talk about the U.S. economy, right? Where we are in terms of the GDP that was released today. Just want to have a conversation with you guys about the GDP, the latest GDP report, and what it means, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today, guys. We hear all the time, hey, economy is growing, economy is slowing. What does that really mean? And I think the GDP numbers that came out today are going to be a good indication of that. And we'll talk about it, right? Sort of the macroeconomic or bigger look, big picture of it, right? That sometimes leaves a lot of us clueless because all we can see and care about a lot of times, guys, for us is we see rent, right, going up. We see the cost of housing going up or down. We see bread, right, the price of gas and the local gas station near us, right? But the overall GDP numbers, such as the ones that came out today, those are more of those bigger picture things, and they sort of matter. But I also want us to keep in mind that those are sort of propaganda, so to speak. So we'll get into it, guys. I want to sort of break this stuff down to you in plain language. I know you get real short. If you watch a lot of YouTube, you see real short tidbits, little, trinkets of what's happening and what's going on without really any in-depth explanation of what you're seeing or looking at. But I want to go over the numbers that came out today and discuss really what they're not saying, right? The GDP numbers came out, economy looks strong, and we'll go over the specific numbers. But there's some things behind closed doors that the numbers don't really show in terms of the economy when we look at the state of our own personal consumption here in America as Americans. But as you come in, guys, do me a favor, smash that like button, right? Smash that like button, share the link to this video because this is going to be a nice conversation. If you don't know anything about the GDP or you don't even know what the GDP really means, stick around for this video. You're gonna get some of that information right here in this video in plain language, not in NBC and ABC and CNN and Fox and all that. Not there, but just plain, regular, ordinary talk explaining what that stuff is and what happened in terms of the GDP today. So please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Smash the like as you come in. Let me know where you're coming in from, guys. I appreciate that. You guys, if you've ever been a part of this live before, I always like to get where you guys are from, right? We always get them from all over the world, which is awesome. I really appreciate that. So as look at the deal here, Johnny from Palm Desert, California, where the weather is probably wonderful. Appreciate you being here, Johnny. Reba's here from Texas. Let's see here. Yeah, Kathy said my 401k is down 900 over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, all of the stock market has been going down the last couple of weeks, guys. So we'll talk about that as well and how that kind of meshes in with these whole GDP numbers that came out today. We'll also sort of analyze these GDP numbers, or at least give a little bit of information about them a little deeper in terms of what they mean, right? Got Jersey in the house. Good to have you, Ida. And we got Ohio here. Kathy, good to have you, Kathy. RC from Palm Beach, Florida, however you say it. And then we got Alabama's here, Paul. Kenny from Chicago, South Side, West Side, North Side, Chicago. Not sure. Kenny, you'll let us know. Hucklebuck, good to have you here as always. Time to dig in and buy more paper assets. Absolutely, guys. We'll talk about that as well. So as you come in, smash that like button for us. Again, that gets it out to more and more people. You're going to hear a lot of analysis on YouTube about the GDP that came out today, this morning. And hopefully what I share with you guys will give you a little deeper idea of what's going on with the GDP instead of just kind of the, few little, the 7-minute video that you get or the 3-minute video that you get that just gives you, pops you off a bunch of numbers and so forth. So Kenny said he's in the northwest suburb of Chicago. Good to have you. BC, what does BC stand for? Slava said NC, North Carolina, I'm taking that is. All right, good to have you here. And again, smash that like button for us, guys, as you come in. Don't forget, a couple of housekeeping things before we really get started. 24 Laws of Money, free ebook in the description box below. If you haven't got it, please get it. Goes over my 24 principles of money that literally helped me grow my wealth. And it talks about my journey as well. But it also gives you 24 principles to live by with money. And it's free. in the description box below, so feel free to knock that out. Also, I've recently partnered with Mint Mobile. I got Mint Mobile on my cell phone, guys, premium wireless, so you may want to consider Mint Mobile. No salespeople, no retail store, so their plans cost you a lot less money. No overhead, right? Very little overhead. They use the world's largest 5G network. I had several people email me and ask me, hey, how's their customer service if they don't have retail? It's great. Trust me, it's great. There's a link to that description, Mint Mobile, in the description box below as well. Just wanted to get those housekeeping things out of the way. Guys, let me know in the comments again where you're checking in from real quick. It looks like, okay, so Slava, still North Carolina. That's the last one. Good, okay. So what happened today at 7:30 a.m. or 8:30 a.m., depending on where you are here in America, East Coast or not. I think it was 8:30 East Coast. The U.S. Department of Commerce released, well, actually, it's a bureau under the Department of Commerce, right? The Bureau of Economic something. I'm not sure. BEA, I think, is who they are. But they released the latest GDP, gross domestic product numbers here in America for quarter 3. Okay. Now, what they're saying in those numbers, we're going to dig into those numbers. They're saying that GDP is increasing and we're not nowhere near a recession. The economy is super duper strong, right? The U.S. economy is very, very strong. That's what the numbers say on paper. Now, the beauty, not the beauty, but the thing about life is we don't live life just on paper based on numbers. Because when you ask the average American, hey, how are you doing? Now, 60% of Americans, 60% of Americans say, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, right? So it's like they're saying the numbers say one thing and they're putting out the press release, the propaganda that says, yes, it's going up. GDP we're strong. America is resilient, right? That's a big word that's often used, right? Resilient. But when you look at behind the numbers, underneath the paper, what they're really not telling us about, that's GDP, but how are the people really living or feeling about what's going on in the economy, right? With inflation being high, strikers striking, right? Wars across the seas, $100 billion packages being introduced into Congress to go fight wars on other soil, right? Not to mention the day-to-day inflation that we see in terms of prices going up, price of bread, price of eggs, price of gas, whatever you name, right? The price of a package of M&Ms, and I like the peanut M&Ms in the yellow package, right? I like those a lot, but they're 90 cents here one day, and then 6 months later, they're $1.79 somewhere else. The point is that everything is increasing and we're feeling it. Not to mention, credit card usage in America is up at its highest level ever, over $1 trillion, a total aggregate, but also over 6,000 some odd something average per household. So all these things are happening, right? Our dollars are stretching less. Wages aren't keeping up with inflation over the last 10, 15, 20 years. But yet GDP is strong and America's economy is booming, so to speak, right? Today, it was announced that the real gross domestic product, GDP, increased 4.9% in third quarter 2023. Now, I want to break down what that means, guys, because that's according to the advanced estimate. I'll explain what the advanced estimate is later. Matter of fact, let me share my screen with you guys real quick. I want to show you this chart so you can see what I'm saying, all right? So let's see here. All right. So here it is right here. I think this one's it. There it is. All right, so I'm sharing a screen with you guys, and I'm sure you can see it by now, and I'll go ahead and I'll jump to the corner. How about that? All right, so if you look at the GDP, the numbers I'm giving you are showing you right here, guys. The real GDP percent change from the preceding quarter. It was 2.1% right here. This is, and you can probably see that on your screen. Quarter 2, which was, so it's, quarter 1 is January, February, March. Quarter 2 is April, May, June. Quarter 3 is July, August, September. So we got quarter 3 numbers today, and you can see it at 4.9%, right? But quarter 2 was only 2.1%. So over the last year or so, this is quarter 4 of last year, quarter 3 of last year, you can see, wow, kind of went down a little bit, but man, the economy is booming. Everything is looking great. Wow, look at that GDP go up to almost 5% GDP. Wow, America is growing tremendously, right? In the second quarter, real GDP, as I mentioned, second quarter's right here, by the way, as I said, 2.1% leaped all the way up to 4.9% this quarter, or third quarter, right? So they say that in their numbers and evaluations, the increase this third quarter to 4.9% primarily reflected an increase in consumer spending. So our spending as consumers. And of course, they mentioned inventory for businesses building up and so forth, going higher as we go into the winter months, and also as supply chains sort of loosen up from where they were when the pandemic was going on. So those things kind of contributed to this high GDP. Consumer spending makes it sound like we all have a lot of money to spend. Of course, we know that labor, in terms of the unemployment market, unemployment rate is still around 3.8% for unemployment, 3.7, 3.8%, which is still very, very low. So a lot of people are working, lots of money flowing out there in consumers' hands. A lot of it is credit, but a lot of money flowing out here in consumers' hands. So they're saying, hey, consumers were responsible for a lot of this increase in the GDP. But what they're not saying, and this is what I want to talk about briefly now, and I'll talk about it a little later, what they're not really saying, guys, and I'll stop sharing my screen, is that at what cost is the GDP increasing, right? At what cost? It all looks good on paper in terms of the growth. GDP is basically an end product, right? They're not saying the flip side of what GDP actually costs. Remember, we have coming up, guys, in 2024, we've got an election season coming up, right? And keep in mind, when you have an election season in America, especially when you're talking about the presidential election, which we have coming up in 2024, you're going to get all types of propaganda and all types of misinformation and all types of it looks good on paper type of information, right? From both sides of the aisle. All right. That's what you're going to be getting quite a bit. But what happens in particular with GDP is they don't give you the full picture of the GDP numbers. They talk about the bottom line, the end product, because GDP is the final product. It's the measure of final products, right? So let's be clear. Let me back up for a second. Let's be clear about what GDP is. Okay. GDP is the final value of goods and services produced. Okay. It's the final value. GDP stands for gross domestic product, right? It's just it's a measure of the monetary value of those final goods and services. So that are bought by a final user, right? So that's important to know, right? So GDP is the monetary value of those final goods that are produced in a country in a given period of time. And we usually measure that period in quarters. That's why today we got the third quarter advance GDP numbers. I'm going to explain advance in a second. By the way, when you hear real GDP, it's just the value of goods and services produced in a country in a given time adjusted for inflation. So that 4.9% considers inflation. And again, we usually look at GDP on a quarterly basis every 3 months, right? Like I said, January, February, March, quarter one. April, May, June, quarter two. July, August, September, quarter three. So in October, we got quarter three, July, August, September's advanced numbers. Of course, quarter four is going to be October, November, December, right? So why is GDP important? Because changes in the GDP every 3 months are one of the most popular and one of the main indicators that nations kind of measure their overall economic health or growth, right? Either it's growth or it's decline. That's why they tell us. That's what they tell us, right? GDP leaves out some things, right? As we mentioned earlier, and we'll talk about later. But GDP up, economy looks good. Everything's growing. Wow, we're booming. GDP down. Oh, things are not growing. There's a problem in America. Whatever it may be. The goal is to always have an increasing GDP, obviously, because that's the machine. When you have the GDP increasing, the machine is working. That's the growth of the machine right now called America, because we're talking about America, but it could be any country. Could be Brazil, could be China, could be India, could be anywhere, right? But in America, GDP, that's our growth. That measures our growth, right? And it keeps the money flowing, keeps the economy going. So right now, we are currently in fourth quarter. But again, we got quarter three GDP numbers. Now, how often are GDP numbers released? There's three versions of every quarter's GDP, okay, that's released to the public. Three different versions. Each version is released each month. So in October, today, we got the advanced quarter three, right? Quarter three started back in July. July, August, September is quarter three. We got the advanced quarter three today. In November, we get the second release of quarter three GDP. And then in December, we get the final release of GDP from the third quarter. Okay, that's kind of how it works. And so in October, today, we got the advanced quarter three. In November, again, we get the second. So that's important to know. Three versions. That's why when you really read about it, you look online somewhere, it'll tell you advanced numbers. These are advanced numbers because they have to revise them as other numbers come in throughout the next couple of months before December, when they can get a final reading on quarter three. It's always back, in the past, okay? Even though we're operating right now in quarter four for the next couple of months, right? It becomes more and more accurate. The estimates become more and more accurate with each one. The advanced is a little bit hazy, right? The revised is better. The final is the best, right? So just keep that in mind. And it came out today from, I'm gonna pull it up here. Looks like the Bureau of Economic Analysis, BEA, which is underneath the Department of Commerce, by the way. So that's kind of what the GDP reads and how it reads. We got our advanced reading 4.9. Typically, the next versions are going to be estimates that can go up or down by an average of about 0.5%. So you might see this 4.9 with the next version in November. The second version, you might find it go up to 5.2, or it might go down to 4.7. Right within 0.5% is how they usually average out in terms of the changes as you go through each version, right? So just to keep that in mind, guys. So again, the third quarter numbers for today, the advanced numbers said, yes, the economy is booming, right? So let me tell you what they said. First, let me be more specific. They were expecting 4.7%. Right, so that's kind of what the numbers we're talking. They were expecting, and ultimately, what happens is when you get to the final version of quarter three in December, typically it comes out to more so usually how they were expecting, right? But the advance is usually a little bit off from expectations, and these expectations was 4.7%, and we came in with this advanced reading at 4.9%. So let me just show you guys something. I'm gonna walk you through something real quick if you guys don't mind. I like to kind of break stuff down a little deeper than what we normally get sometimes. So let me kind of show you something real quick. I want to show you this quick, get rid of that, show you this quick little, and you guys can let me know how you see this or if you see it or not. I'm in the deep corner over there, so I'm going to actually get out of the screen, all right? So I want to show you, this is kind of GDP in America over the last, I'm going to pull it up. There you go, so you can see it. This is GDP from 1961 to 2024, and I'm just going to kind of show you the whole graph right here. This is GDP, all right? And it shows it in percentage-wise, and it shows you also at the bottom down here the annual change, right? The annual change is in green and red down here, and the actual growth or not growth is up here in the blue, this half up here, all right? So I just kind of want to show you this because I believe that we have an incredibly smart group of people that tune into my lives. Extremely bright, extremely intelligent, and extremely smart people, right? So I want to kind of show you this chart here, guys. And I want you to look at the spikes and the dips. Now, I'm not even going to look at the annual change too much, but I want to look up at the top in the blue where you see the GDP growth. And if you notice, guys, in the last 45 years, am I saying that right? Yeah, about 50 years or so, there's really been three major, and let me kind of move some stuff over here so I can make this big on my screen. All right, there we go. So there's been three major dips, major events. Let me say major events in the U.S. economy where the GDP has dipped significantly in the last 40 years or so, right? And I'll just kind of point them out to you, right? So if you go back here, right here, this one right here, GDP dropped below negative back in 1982, right? And then we're going to look over here and we're going to see where the GDP dropped significantly back in 2009. And then it dropped again back in 2020. Now, a lot of you were alive for all three of these events, and you know what these are, right? But this is when the GDP, when America's economy wasn't growing at all. It dipped super duper low. In 1982, you guys may know what happened. Does anybody know what happened in 1982 that caused this dip right here? Right? In the end of 81, 82, the American economy entered into a severe recession, right? A severe recession. But not only do I want you to look at these dips right here, but I want you to look at what happened right here. Boom. Right? So how did we come out of these incredible dips? So the economy in 1982, guys, labor market went way down, went crazy, right? Unemployment went up to almost 11%. Things were crazy. I think that was a year that Ronald Reagan got elected to president, and unemployment had reached its highest peak in 1982 since World War II, right? So in 40 years or so, a little less than 40 years, the unemployment went way up. So we had a recession right here, okay? Let me bring myself back on the screen if I can, because I like to see what I'm doing there. Okay, so now what happened again in 2008? Everybody kind of knows what happened in 2008 that caused the large dip in the recession, right? That was when the financial crisis sort of began with cheap credit, right? That we had to buy houses and all that kind of stuff. Lending was you could have a 450 score and go out and get a house, right? Not really, but you know what I'm saying, right? Housing bubble happened. Banks were left holding trillions of dollars of worthless investments. Subprime mortgages really took off. Sort of a recession took off, right? So that's what happened. Remember that in 2008, right? And again, 2008, we see where it dipped. Recession in 1982, recession in 2008, 2009, right? Right after 2008. But again, I want you to pay attention to how we climbed out of it. Boom. See that big mark out there? Boom. Went up. Then, of course, we know what happened in 2020, obviously, right? If you weren't alive in 2020 and you're watching this broadcast, something's wrong, all right? So the point is that we were all here in 2020, so we know, although that was the pandemic, each time there was monetary policy that was a little bit different that had to be put in place to rescue the economy from the low dip. Because again, America always wants to see that line going up in terms of GDP, right? And when you see when you see these huge spikes that go up in the GDP following the low points, right? That's where there was a course correction made, and not just a natural course correction, but a Fed-led course correction, right? And of course, we know how they rescued us in 2020. Rescued us, meaning the economy in 2020 was the Fed used what they call quantitative easing, where the Fed printed out money and they took that money and they bought bonds from banks and others. And they put more money out there in the economy so that banks could now lend more money and allow money to flow more freely. That's what happened recently, right? So after 1982, interest rates spiked afterwards, inflation ballooned. After 2008, interest rates shrunk for about 10 years. And by the way, if you guys remember, most of you were alive, I'm sure. Remember this right here, guys? What happened? What is this right here? GDP didn't fluctuate very much at all, stayed kind of nice between, 1.8% to 2.7 or 2.8, 2.9%. What was happening right here, guys, in this area right here where my cursor is, you had low interest rates. You had a long period, 10-year period of low interest rates. No issues, right? You could get a house at 2.5, 2.7 if you had good credit, 3.0, 3.5. That was the norm for mortgage rates, right? Economy was going pretty smooth. Everybody was feeling pretty good, right? Then you had the pandemic, took the legs out. Then you had quantitative easing where they added money back to the economy, added, bonds to their balance sheet. The Fed did. Boom. And then we had high prices again, of course, right? We had high prices. So anyway, I just want to kind of show you guys that I don't want to delve too deep in that. Don't want to make this like an economics course, right? Macroeconomics course. But I just want to show you guys that chart because this chart just gives you a bigger picture of where we are in terms of the GDP, right? In terms of the growth of the GDP. Don't forget that, guys, by the way, we got more to talk about here, but I just want to tell you guys, don't forget to smash the like button below, all right? Whatever you do, don't forget to smash that like button and share the link to this video. And also don't forget subscribe if you're not a subscriber, right? The other thing that I want to mention is that we had all this talk of recession. Remember this time last year, if you guys remember, the U.S. economy, we're going to have a big time recession next year. And some experts were coming out. Yeah, get ready for the bottom to fall out at the end of 2023. Well, the U.S. economy, because of what we're seeing, 2.1% GDP last quarter, 4.9% could be adjusted GDP this quarter. The economy has been too strong for a recession, right? Too much strength there, right? The textbook version of a recession is 2 straight quarters of a down GDP, right? 2 straight quarters where the economy is experiencing some negative growth or some negativity. And we just haven't seen that, right? We haven't seen what we thought we were going to see in terms of down economy. Now, I say a down economy. I'm saying a down economy on paper, right? We know what inflation has done to our pocketbooks in the last year and a half, but on paper, right? So what are they expecting moving forward? Economists moving forward. We know they messed up and botched the fact that we were going to have some type of recession at the end of this year. So what this means really is there's several things, but one thing it means is next week the Fed is going to meet to make a determination on whether or not they're going to raise interest rates on short-term loans, car loans, credit card, right? Those type of things. Those are short-term loans. The Fed is going to make a decision whether they're going to raise interest rates to the Fed funds rate, which means a raise in the interest rates of those short-term loans. They're going to make that decision next week. I think it's next week, beginning of next week, October 31st, November 1st, right? So right now, the stock market, the stock market is pricing in that there'll be no increase in the Fed funds rate, right? Now, stocks, since we're on stocks, let me just talk about stocks have been down. I think somebody point this out in the beginning of the chat. Stocks have been down the last few weeks, right? If the Fed does not raise rates, it could mean a slight boost to the stock market. So here's why I say that. If you are an investor and you plan to buy individual stocks, maybe now might be the time to get into some of those low-performing stocks, individual stocks, before the Fed makes their announcement next week. Because if the Fed makes their announcement next week and they leave it the same and don't change rates, don't increase the Fed funds rate, stocks could rebound a little bit. If they rebound a little bit, that stock you were looking at $20 might be $22 next week. But this week, it's $19, $17, right? So you got to kind of play that thing by ear. Again, if you guys don't know this channel, I don't do a whole ton of single stock investing. I do a lot of index fund. I really like to talk about index funds, but I'm going to be honest with you. Things are on sale. And if you're a serious investor and you want some growth in your money, you should have been shopping in the last week or two. Should have went shopping. Let me just say it like that. I went shopping. You should have went shopping if you're an investor because the stock market is down. Now be looking for what happens with the Fed. And the Fed is basing what they're going to do on the unemployment. They're basing it on, GDP numbers. All these things will come into play when they make their decision at their meeting. But again, most experts are predicting that the Fed won't raise rates. That means stocks may rebound in a week or two. Okay. But you want to catch stocks buying the dip, right? Buying the dip, buying the low point. So, and also most experts are predicting that at quarter 4 of this year, GDP is going to be down as opposed to up. It's not going to be at, 4.9%. It's going to grow, but it won't be growing at that rate, right? We know that things like with the buying season is coming up, quarter four. Quarter four is always the season. You got Thanksgiving, right? You got travel, right? You got Christmas. So purchases, and so forth are all going to be things that are going to be looked at. But even with all that, they're still predicting that spending amongst consumers are going to be down. So yes, the GDP is up. But I want you to remember, let me talk about a few things regarding the GDP, okay? What they really don't tell us about the GDP. And guys, I like to do, just so you know, on this channel, I like to give sort of a little bit of deeper dive into the analysis as opposed to I could do a quick 6-minute video or 8-minute video on this stuff or 10-minute video and be done with it, right? But I like to because this stuff sometimes, I like to give it to you in plain language that, that's not real quick tidbits, right? Quick snapshots. I want to give you a little bit more than that. So that's why I kind of go into a little further explanation on this channel. So, and guys, let me know if that's helpful to you. If you like or think that that's a good idea to go into a little bit more depth, because these things kind of require a little more depth, right? But for the past several decades, in terms of GDP, we've been hearing the same thing. Economic growth. Economic growth is important. It's always good, right? We know we want it to continue to go up. We want the charts to go up, right? We always want GDP to keep rising and going up and hitting the high ceilings and, not slowing down at all, right? We don't want to see that at all. But, and matter of fact, let me just show you this, guys. This is what we want to see right here. Just kind of show you this real quick. Again, I'm a chart guy, so I like reading charts. But let me just show you this quick chart on what we really want to always see when it comes to GDP, right? What we really want to always see is this, right? I'm on the economic research, what they call the Fred table here. So GDP, we always want to see this. Can you guys see that? Yep, you can see it. This is since 1950 or so, right? We always want to see this. We don't want to see this blip. This is 2008, right? We don't want to see this blip. That's 2020, the pandemic. We want to see this thing continue to rise up nice and smooth. But every now and then there's world events that take place and economic things that take place that causes a little chink in the armor right there. 2008 was a chink in the armor. 2020 was a chink in the armor, right? So we always want to see it go up. That's what they want to see, right? But what do we miss when we keep our attention focused on this one little number called a GDP that always looks good for the most part, right? What are we missing? We're missing more, right? There's more to living in America than just the final products that go out to be sold, right? Right. So we miss some of the other things, and focusing on that number, we're overlooking some things. What did it take to achieve this level of output? Right? Is that a reason why we keep the borders open, to make sure we have more inexpensive labor coming into the country? You guys tell me, right? But we always want to see this GDP rising and rising and rising, and sometimes there's more to the picture than just the GDP rising. What about crime rates? What about safety? What about, other things? This continual machine of constant grind and churn to put out this top performance around the world, and at the same time make sure we're policing the world to control, what we want to control in terms of economic output, right? And to, and what does it take to advertise and this and create the new ways of inventing and creating new ways of churning out more and more production for more and more economic output to keep the GDP going up and up and up, and labor, right? We don't have enough labor. Okay, well, now some people are saying we need to pay these workers more. Some people are saying I don't want to do that. How do we get cheap labor in here to do this? Listen, America has always worked on inexpensive labor. Always, since the start of America. I don't care if you go back to 18 to 1625 to 1670 to 1750. It's always been inexpensive, cheap labor. That plays into some of this, and nobody talks about it at the highest levels, right? They talk about labor, but they don't talk about the need for inexpensive labor, right? These are things that also go along with this GDP on paper. GDP measures the monetary value of the goods and service produced in a country in a given time, the final goods and services, right? Things like consumption, government spending, right? Exports, imports, right? But there's also unpaid work. What about that? Sales of used goods. Remember I said final product. What about the sale of things that have already been used, right? And what about perhaps the most important thing that GDP, this is why the name of this video is what they're not telling us, right? What about the fact that the general well-being of the American people, right? General well-being meaning safety, right? Meaning are people having to work more to afford less? Are people having to put in more hours on the job to have less affordability of regular basic items? What about rent and the increase in rent versus the increase in wages, right? These are all things that the GDP doesn't measure. And this is what they're not really going into detail about, right? Right? Yeah, we know that generally speaking, countries with stronger and growing economies have higher standards of living. We understand that, right? But GDP is only one indicator of many on how things are actually going for the general well-being of the citizens of the country, right? Now, I'm not one to complain because I know that American citizens live better than most people in the world for the most part, right? So I'm not one to sit here and complain about about how things are going. But the GDP doesn't measure that, how things are going for the people, right? So I just want to kind of point that out to you because there's some limitations on the GDP. Yeah, they say it's booming, it's looking good. GDP is up 4.9%. That's will be a positive measure. But we also understand that people are still having a harder and harder time to afford basic needs and basic living essentials in America, right? That's not a complaint. That's just the facts, right? So another thing, let me jump off that soapbox. So again, I want to reiterate this, guys. Stock market has been down. Don't forget, they're anticipating the Fed won't raise rates. Don't forget that stocks are on sale. Many stocks, not all of them, but many of them. Many ETFs, many index funds, many mutual funds. It could be buying time if you have if you're an investor. It could be buying time, right? Could be buying time. Guys, I like to kind of, like I said, educate on this channel when it comes to the U.S. economy because most of us, truly, it's not our fault, but we really don't get the information when it's thrown out in these little 3-minute stories on the news and stuff like that. So I kind of went over a lot, guys. I want to kind of see if you guys got any Q&A, little questions. We can have a conversation. As a reminder, I do offer one-on-one financial mentoring and coaching programs. There's a link to that in the description. Free 24 Laws of Money in the description. Get your Mint Mobile subscription. I got mine in the description. Just want to throw those things out at you as well. But if there's a Q&A, guys, you got a question, I can run through the chat section before we drop off this live. But I don't want to end the live without at least have a little conversation. I like a little back and forth with you guys every Thursday. By the way, we do this on Thursdays at 4:30 Central Time. We do this again Saturday morning, 11 a.m., right? We talk about either it's personal finance, it might be something pertinent going on in the U.S. economy. But we want to have these conversations on a regular basis, guys. Just kind of looking back through your comments, guys, and feel free to drop them. That's okay. They forgot opportunity costs. Absolutely. That's an old economic term, guys. Not to mention the fact that in September or October, what happened, guys, with student loans? Everybody started to start paying their student loans again, right? That's another thing that's not measured by this wonderful number of the economy going up called the GDP, right? People have to start figuring out how can I fit in this $300 student loan payment? How can I fit in this $600 student loan payment, right? I've lived my life for 2 years. This is why I suggested at the beginning of the pandemic, keep paying your student loans or at least keep putting that money aside so that if this thing doesn't work out in terms of Biden's plan to remove student loan payments for, a lot of up to $10,000 or $20,000. If it didn't work out, you had the money to pay and get started on your payments again. So, really important. Those things are going to hamper some folks. If you got a question, put a Q in front of it, guys. It helps me out. But yeah, do me a favor, guys. Also, yes, please smash the like button. Smash the like button. Please, please, please. It helps this video. Get out to more and more people, and share the link, guys, because a lot of folks, we hear about GDP and growth of the economy, but we kind of only hear about what they want to report about, right? What they want to say about the GDP in public, right? And usually that's a GDP that is, and you'll hear a lot of propaganda. Again, I'll say it again, guys. You'll hear a lot of propaganda over the next few months about how the economy is growing and all this kind of stuff. Take all that with a grain of salt, right? Understand your source, right? Where you're getting that information from and what may be the agenda to put that information out there in the airways, right? Of course, we know rents are crazy. Let's just be honest with you, right? We know rents are ridiculous, right? They went up way too high, too fast for a lot of folks, right? And hey, I have family members that were looking for homes in the last year, looking for places to rent in the last year or two. So, I'm not I understand exactly what's going on with rents. Yeah, so I went out shopping, guys. So I hope you guys went out shopping as well the last several days in terms of rent. That's why it's always important to keep some money laying around, guys. If you are able to have a little bit of money, just in case you see things like that go on. So I'm glad to have you, SCG Publishing. Looks like first time listener. Glad that you're here. Gave you a shout out. Where should we go to buy stocks? Somebody said Webull. Hey, listen, guys, here's the deal. Me personally, I'm going to tell you what I do. I use large brokerage houses. Now, there's nothing wrong with Webull. If you want to do it on your phone, that's cool. And you don't have a laptop or computer, you want to do it on your phone, that's cool. Webull. I think there's Moomoo out there. I have heard a lot of good things about Moomoo. I think there's, you name it. There's a lot of different applications you can use to invest your money. That's cool. Right? I don't do banking, and I don't do banking or investing on my phone. I just don't do it. I might lose my phone, and its authentication might not be set up properly, or something went wrong or something. So I don't do anything really with my phone in terms of that. But if you want to do Webull on your phone or on your laptop, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's a good place to start, right? I like the bigger brokerage houses, though. I'm more of a Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, those type of places. When it comes to investing money, right? But it doesn't matter. I think Webull is fine if you use Webull. Not a problem at all. So yeah, looks like maybe it's okay. I noticed that when people get cost of living pay hikes, all of a sudden food, gas, etc., prices go up. I don't know. There could be some science behind January, February, March, first quarter of every year, slight increase in prices. But food is one of those volatile pieces of the basket of goods that they measure inflation from. Food is one of those things that go up and down quite a bit, guys. And they go up high, they go up low. And food is based on a lot of different things, okay? Food is based on the energy it took to produce the food out there, wherever they're producing it, at the plant or in the field, wherever they're producing it. Food is based on, the amount of gas or the amount of gas and the price of gas that it took to ship it to where it ends up. Food is based on, the amount of energy it took to actually produce the machine or use the machines that put out the food and packaged it, the cost of the manufacturing of the plastic to put it in that nice package you get in the grocery. There's so many things involved in producing food that hits the shelf of the grocery store. It makes it volatile. And food and energy go hand in hand because it takes energy to produce food. It takes energy to pull whatever raw material is out of the ground and go to a machine, add all the other stuff into the food that it took to. So food and energy go hand in hand, and they're very volatile. That's one of the reasons they throw it out when they look at core PCE, because there's so much going on to producing food. None of us are eating food. Very few of us are eating food right from the ground in our backyard, right? So all the food we eat has to be shipped, transported to this wholesale department, put in this truck, put in this airplane, shipped. All that takes gas and energy and all kind of stuff to get to our final destination. So food could go up in January, February of every year after a cost of living increase that happens typically in December for a lot of folks. I don't know. That's a good question. I have to dig into that and see. So it's not wasn't a silly comment at all. Ada, I think Ada, they get it right. So John said, thanks for the insight. Hey, John, that's what I'm here for, to offer a little bit of a deeper insight in this stuff. Again, I could have made this a 5-minute, 10-minute video, but I said, let's talk about this because there's a little more to this than what meets the eye. So let's dig into it a little bit. Thanks for smashing the like button. Don't forget to hit that like button for me. Think Magnificent Seven, somebody, Hucklebuck said. Now, what is the Magnificent Seven? I said magnificent. Magnificent Seven. That's the 7 largest stocks on the stock market, right? Google Alphabet, Amazon, Nvidia, right? There's some other ones, right? Now, I'm not a big, I won't say I'm not a big fan, but I don't want to invest in only the Magnificent Seven, right? I'm not an individual stock guy, but the Magnificent Seven, every decade or two, right? There's some big group of stocks that end up doing real well, right? I mean, back in the 80s, it might have been Procter and Gamble and some others, and they were doing real well that decade, but something happened, something went wrong, it changed the next decade. So Magnificent Seven is what's looking good, like, you can't lose if you invest in these magnificent 7 stocks. But stock market's huge, right? So I don't like to just be honed in on 7 stocks. So, but if people do, that's cool. That's you. Not a big deal. I'm not an individual stock guy anyway. Index funds or ETFs. I like ETFs and I like index fund. I don't think there's either or. Both. Paul Beasley asked that question. Paul, go with both. All right, get you some index funds, get you some ETF funds, put them, all that stuff. ETF, get you some index ETF funds, right? And some folks said Merrill, looked like somebody said Merrill Edge and Fidelity. I think Merrill Lynch just merged with somebody, right? Was it TD Ameritrade? So Fidelity, yeah, I like the larger brokerage houses myself. GDP only covers activities that involve the exchange of money. Everything else is left out. Exactly. Pollution, all those things are left out, right? Those things are totally out of the GDP. GDP is just one measure. It looks good on paper. It looks good when this country can compare their GDP, or if a country like Japan comes and wants to buy some bonds from America, America say, hey, we have a strong GDP. It's a wonderful selling point, and it's a wonderful selling point to the people of that country, right? It looks good on paper, right? But there's way more to it than just what looks good on paper, right? There's a lot more to it. And Mike began to name a few things that's not taken in consideration when it comes to GDP. He's right about that. Somebody said Vanguard and Fidelity, noted. Great. Yeah, Vanguard, Fidelity, not Merrill Lynch anymore. It's called something else. But some of those, Google your top 5 brokerage firms, right? That's where I think they're a little more safe, but that's just me being old school. I could be totally wrong, right? Somebody said, question for beginners, what top 3 to 5 points would you suggest to look for when researching stocks to buy on sale? When it comes to looking at stocks, guys, and what to purchase when it comes to stocks, don't just look at the numbers, right? PE ratios and all that. Don't just look at the numbers in terms of the growth, right? The growth of but look at the company itself, right? Go back to maybe like a what's his name? Buffett type of look, kind of a wholesale look at the whole thing as opposed to just the numbers on paper. Right? What do you use? Right? The things that I use, I invest in the things that I use and I like. And I think, wow, they're doing really well. Then I do a little bit of research about the company itself. What are some projections? What is the company looking to get into? What is the company leaving behind and stop doing? How is the company evolving over the course of, the last 5 years? What are they doing new? So I look at the company, not just the numbers. Who's running the company? Right? What is the history of that particular CEO and the direction? Because listen, a CEO can make a big difference in a company, right? A good CEO can make that company flourish. A bad CEO will run that company in the ground. So you want to look at more than just the numbers on paper. What is the growth over the last 5 years? What is the growth of the stock? How much dividends has it given in the last year, 6 months, whatever it may be. But look at the overall picture of the company. What services do they offer that are up and coming, right? That are new, that, hey, that's coming up. That AI technology is really starting to make some waves, right? So maybe NVIDIA looks like a good purchase. Not, don't look backwards. Don't always look at just past performance, because past performance is not an indication of future performance, right? We know that, right? So those are the things I would look at in terms of stock market investing. Again, I'm not a big stock market investor. I look at more so index funds, because I like a group of funds with low fees that I don't have to look at every day. I'm not a guy that likes to put a bunch of monitors up in front of me and measure how things are going up every single day. I really don't like doing that. It's not me. But if you do that, cool. There's nothing at all wrong with that. But I got a job, so I have to work. I can't spend time focusing on that. So hopefully that's a few things to help you out. Miss Jefferson looks like that's a few things to help you out in terms of what to look for in terms of stocks. Don't just look at stocks, the numbers, the PE ratios and all that, the cap rates and all that. Also look at the company itself. All right. Somebody said, hey, Elliot, good to have you here. Elliot said, would you agree it's better to keep up with the Fed as opposed to the Joneses? Elliot's always got something smart to say. I appreciate that, Elliot. Yeah, always keep up with the Fed instead of the Joneses, no doubt. She said, what? Okay, so boom, boom, boom. All right. Lots of military spending. Absolutely. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but I'm going to throw it out there if you didn't see it. But the president put forth a $100 billion spending plan last week. I don't know if you guys saw that in the news or not. $100 billion spending plan. Most of it was funding for the two wars that are going on. Of course, 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, you had Janet Yellen who said, hey, we can fund she basically, I'm paraphrasing, she said, America has the money to fund both wars. Right? That's kind of what she said. I almost did a video on that, but I didn't, because it was a crazy statement to say, wow, America has enough money to just print money and go fund both wars. And so the $100 billion plan that was introduced last week, it hasn't been voted on. It's not, it's just was introduced by the president. And a lot of it is to fund the Ukraine war and fund what's going on in Israel, or near Israel as well. So that's pretty interesting. You guys need to be keeping up with that, right? So when Pete O said lots of military spending, absolutely. Listen, it costs money to deploy units over to that part of the world. It costs money to get them there, all right? And other places as well. Somebody said, thank you for just you. Okay. You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure. What's my thought on gold and silver? If you know and understand the gold and silver market, go for it. Me, I don't know the gold and silver market. I don't invest in gold and silver. Not a bad place to be if you understand it. I would never put all of my money in gold and silver. Okay. I would never panic to the point where I say, oh, I'm pulling my $100,000 out of the stock market to go invest in gold and silver. I wouldn't do that. If you want a small portion of your money to go into gold and silver, 3% of your entire portfolio, 5% of your portfolio, that's totally up to you. If you understand gold and silver, don't invest in things that you don't understand, or don't invest in things just because you saw a YouTube video. That's not enough. Okay. And it's not maybe MJ said it makes you wonder how cooked the stats are. I don't know that the stats are necessarily cooked, but the stats can say what you want them to say. Does anybody manage their finances? And you have a spouse or partner, somebody you guys manage your finances together. You ever notice how the person that controls the managing of the financing can pretty much manipulate the books to make it sound and look like whatever they want to make it sound and look like to the other person? That's what happens all the time. And I don't know that they're cooking the books. They're just presenting the information in a way that makes it sound a certain way, or they're presenting only one side of the information. So you got to be careful about that. That's why you got to learn about money, because we use money every day, but we have to understand the nuances of money and how the talk about money can make you think a certain thing about money and skew your whole perspective of what's happening in the economy. You can watch one 2-minute episode or 2-minute segment on CNN, and the way they report that segment on the U.S. economy on CNN on that 2-minute segment will sway the way you think about it. It will affect how you think about it. And this is why propaganda or the media is so powerful. It's so powerful, and it's so powerful that we don't even know it's powerful, and we don't even know its effect on how we think about the money, right? So so that's just something to think about, guys. Let's see. Someday I'd like to see a video on why I don't use credit cards. And a video on why I don't use credit cards. Man, that would be an awesome video. I'm gonna write that down and I'll just give you I'll give you a Cliff Notes version. One of the reasons I don't use credit cards is because I don't want the temptation around me. It's just like if I had cookies in the house. If I have a lot of cookies in the house, a lot of sweets in the house, them things might get ate. I don't need to eat them, right? But I like cookies. A good oatmeal raisin cookie, a good warm chocolate chip. Doesn't have to be warm, just a chocolate chip cookie. I like cookies. So guess what? I don't leave cookies around in the house, right? Now, I'm not a big spender. I'm not saying I like to spend, but if I have a credit card handy to use on a regular basis, I might use a credit card more than I probably should. So for me, personal finance is personal. For me personally, I don't like to leave that temptation around the house. And I know it's a temptation because if I don't pay it in full, guys, I'm going to be charged 19, 18, 17, 22% interest. I don't even want that around. So that's Cliff Notes version. There's a lot more to that, though. I haven't used a credit card in years. What about hedge funds? Not a big hedge fund guy. The top stocks are too expensive. Yeah, some of them are expensive, right? Nvidia's trading over $400, right? You may not want to buy, but listen, you can buy a fractional share. Fidelity, you can go on Fidelity and you don't have to buy the whole one share, right, Mike? You can go to Fidelity and buy a fraction of the one share. Buy half of a share, $200, right? So keep that in mind. Vanguard, most Vanguard, you can't buy a fractional share. Fidelity, you can buy a fractional share. Somebody said, how important is rebalancing? It could be important if you got a lot of money, right? It could be important. If you got $700,000 sitting in an account, rebalancing that account could make a difference, a slight difference, right? I personally don't do a lot of rebalancing. I think I have a few times, but not very often. But you can, and if you have $20,000, rebalancing might not make that big of a difference. You won't see a big difference over the course of a year later down the road, right? Someone said new approach to portfolio, broad market fund, dividend fund, and growth mutual fund. Those are growth fund. Those are all great. Depends on how you balance that thing out. But listen, again, if you are an investor, stocks are on sale. Whatever your favorite stock is, and if you do invest in individual stocks, please make sure you invest in a lot of individual stocks so you can spread your risk. Don't have all of your money in Amazon, right? Don't have all your money wrapped up into Google, right? Don't do that. Spread it around. Spread it across the board so that you mitigate some of those risks of having it in one stock, right? Mike says, I avoid individual stocks, too much risk, so forth. I understand that, absolutely. Let's see. Guys, don't forget to smash that like button. I keep saying it. D. Grant said, Richard Fain is investing in $1 million property in Colorado. He wants his followers in Webull to help him financially. I don't know. I have watched his channel. Richard Fain has a pretty good channel. You want to check him out. I like to shout out good channels, right? I don't see Mommy Trader in here, but she's in here. Pocket Watching with JT. He pops in here sometime. Go check out his channel. Richard Fain. I don't think Richard Fain has ever popped in, but he has a good channel as well. Check him out. Investing in $1 million property in Colorado, and he wants his followers in Webull to help him financially, and they will get twice back. What do you think about this? That's not me. I don't invest for my followers. I don't get into investing I don't get into starting up these trust fund or these trust funds or trust investment funds or whatever you want to call them. I don't mess with those starting REITs and all that. I don't do all that type of thing. What do I think about it? I think that you got to make your own decision if you want to invest with somebody that you watch on a YouTube channel on a regular basis. Totally your choice, not my choice. I will never ask you to do that because I strongly believe that personal finance is personal, and I don't want to take responsibility for other people's money, but I do want to help folks with their money. I want to help folks help themselves. So if that's what he's doing, fantastic. If you want to go for it, I say go for it. I'm not going to be involved in that, though. Somebody says, keeping up with the Joneses keep you broke. It sure can keep you broke, but it's easy to do. It's easy to do. You got friends, you got family, and so forth. It's hard sometimes to be an independent thinker with money. It means you can't go on all the trips everybody else goes on. You can't do some of the things other people do. You have to be thinking independently. When the crowd goes right, typically you need to maybe go left. When the crowd goes left and panics and runs, you need to maybe be digging in and buying dips and not panicking, right? So just me, I don't like to rack up. Somebody said, who wants to rack up the temptation to rack up credit card debt? I don't want to have it, guys. So I built my wealth without it. And you don't need credit cards to build your wealth. But if you want to use credit cards to take that next trip because of the points, that's on you. But I'd rather just pay for the trip instead of using the credit card to pay for the trip and to get the points. I'd rather just pay for hey, call me weird. All right. But listen, it takes being weird with money to actually grow money sometimes. Somebody said Weeble, they give you 2 low price crypto coins that you have to claim on your tax return. Somebody said gold and silver are more of a preservation of fiat, more so than investment, possibly, yeah. Only debt I believe in should justify debts. Only debt I believe in, guys, is debt on appreciating items. If you have debt on a rental property or a piece of real estate that's going up in value, great, I'm cool with that. I have no problem with that. Let's see, credit cards are very tempting, absolutely. And I'm just reading your comments. You got a question, put a Q in there, guys. I don't mind answering a question, but this is what we do on Thursdays. We talk about the economy, and then we talk about maybe some Q&A and get some questions out there in the air, because if you have a question or are you thinking something, other people are thinking the same thing, right? If you're watching this on the replay, feel free to drop a comment below or a question, because I read 90% of all the comments that come through. I read them. And so, because I like to read them, right? I mean, I like to know what people that watch my videos are thinking. It helps me come up with things to actually present on my channel for you guys, right? Somebody said credit cards, but I only have one because I can pay off at the end of the month. That's cool. Some people just want to have one credit card to use to buy gas for their car, to try to build their credit, to go buy an appreciating item like a house or something. And I understand that too. That's okay. I'm not a guy that says just because I don't do it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Right? Your situation, your risk tolerance, your ability to handle a situation, your management style, how you put together your budget, all those things are individual to you, right? So there are some absolutes in my opinion, right? I absolutely don't want to go out and put payments on something that's going down in value. That's an absolute, right? In my opinion, that's an absolute. I don't want to go, like, for instance, a car. I don't want to buy a car, have payments on a car, and the car is going down in value. I don't want to do that. I won't do that. I don't think that's a wise move in terms of your finances, right? But before a lot of what we see on personal finances all over the internet, YouTube, you name it, IG, whatever, a lot of it depends on your discipline, your ability to your habits, your situation, right? For some of you, you might be in this chat, you might be worth or have a net worth of $1 million. And if you have a net worth of $1 million, then how you handle your life insurance may be different. Maybe a whole term policy may be something that you want to put some money into if you have $1 million net worth. But if you're worth $30,000 and maybe a whole life policy, trying to build wealth from a whole life policy, insurance policy, may not be for you, right? So people have to understand and take that in consideration. Those are the things that we talk about when we do our one-on-ones and so forth. Let's see. Okay, let's see. A video on non-use credit card use. That'd be cool. Yeah, like somebody said before. Any investment books I recommend. I always recommend anything from Jack Bogle. He's the person that started Vanguard. Jack Bogle passed away a couple of years ago at the age of 90 something. But any book you can get your hands on with Jack Bogle, he'll break down to you why index fund investing outperforms individual stock picking. Outperforms mutual funds. How he'll also talk a lot about dividend investing. Why take your dividend at $30 every quarter or $150 or $800 a month. Why take that dividend when you can reinvest that dividend, and the compounding of that dividend is incredible over the course of 20, 30 years. He'll talk about that too. So real common sense investing information you can get from anything Jack Bogle wrote. Let's see. I have Fidelity. This is new information. How? Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Ms. Jefferson. I don't use credit cards because I know I will forget to make the payment. Right. That'll happen sometimes to some of us. Right. So always a temptation. Let's see here. All right. So what are your thoughts on term life versus whole life? I kind of went into that, right? No, but I'll go into it. Term life policy, better than whole life policy for 99% of us. Unless you're wealthy, super wealthy, don't worry about using a whole life policy to try to build your wealth, right? Because first of all, it's going to take you typically, not all of them, but typically it's going to take you 10 years to get enough cash value in there. And then you're going to borrow on the cash value and all. Too much. It's too complicated. It's not necessary. Why would you? Who wants to pay for $1 million life insurance policy? Who wants to pay $600 a month or $450 a month, right? Just to 10 years later go have the money there to borrow. Why would you do all that when you can just simply invest your money, get a term life policy, and put your and in 10 years, if you want to go borrow something, you go borrow at a low rate because you've worked hard on your money and you've kept good credit and you've done all the right things with money after 10 years. You don't need to borrow from yourself, right? Or whatever whole life policies like to say. I'm not a whole life policy guy unless you have a lot of money. If you're wealthy and you have $1 million to drop into a whole life policy that you want to do some different things with, because a lot of folks that are wealthy, they do that. But what they don't tell you is that it's hard to come to start and build wealth, right? The people that I talk to typically on my channel is people that are trying to build wealth and get better with money, not people that are sitting on $3 million that they can do whatever they want to do with. If you have $2 or $3 million that you can do things with, whole life policy is an okay option. Explore it. If you're like most of us, the other 98, 99% of us, then just get you a good term life policy for 15, 20 years and take that difference and invest that difference. I think is what they say, right? Get term and invest the difference is what they say, right? But so I'm not a big person on whole life insurance policy, but I have seen it used well by people that were already wealthy, not people that are trying to build wealth, right? So that's kind of my take on a term life versus whole life. I'm a term life guy. And the whole point of insurance is at some point you want to be self-insured, so you don't need to rely on it. Now, if you want to keep it around, it's inexpensive, cool. But if you do all the things that I talk about on my channel, by the time you get to be 50, 60 years old, by the time you get to be 45 years old, you'll be self-insured, right? Where you don't need you don't need to pay premiums on additional policy because now you got a couple $1 million that are invested. Something happens to you, you've got your estate plan set up, you got your estate plan all mapped out where you can actually tell your money where to go instead of having the state take you through probate. Now you can tell your money where to go and you're self-insured. You don't need the insurance anymore. You don't need to pay $200 a month, $400 a month, $600 a month. Right? That's the whole purpose of being good with your money, is so that at some point insurance kind of wanes off. But term life insurance that's super cheap. You might as well get it. You can get a whole bunch for very little. Let's see. Question is could fractional TJ? Okay, TJ. Could fractional investing be a video topic? It can be. Yes. It can be. I plan to go behind the scenes on a lot of the investments I make with my members, but I think I might do some of that out front with you guys as well. So, any more questions, guys? Put a Q by it. We can answer a few questions. We got a few more minutes here, guys. If something's popping off in your brain, it could be about the U.S. economy. It could be about the fact of the GDP that was released today. I want to reiterate that 4.9% GDP advanced. The 2 more readings are coming out about Q3. The second reading is going to come out in November. The third and final reading is going to come out, and with all the adjustments, in December about Q3. So just keep that in mind as well, guys. And then in January, we'll get the advanced GDP reading for Q4, right? That's how it works. So in January, we'll get the advanced reading for October, November, December will come out in January. And then in February, we'll get the second reading on Q4. That's sort of how the whole picture gets brought out to the public in terms of what the GDP is saying. And again, the advanced numbers of 4.9% can be adjusted Usually it adjusts up or down about a half a percentage point on average. So this 4.9 GDP reading today could be 4.5 by the time December comes and they have their final readings, right? Typically it's adjusted down. Let's see. Jeff said, Dave Ramsey said whole life policy is a middle class life sentence. Maybe, yeah. I kind of tend to agree with Dave Ramsey when it comes to whole life policies. I don't know if you guys understand the commission that a life insurance agent gets on a whole life policy. Crazy. They get a lot of money on whole life policies. And that's one of the reasons I think that they're pushed so heavily. But their selling point is that, hey, you got insurance for the rest of your life. Yeah, but it cost you a whole $350 a month that if you had invested that could have made, hundreds of thousands of dollars for you. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of whole life insurance, as you guys can probably tell. But again, it's okay I'm not saying that you never get it. I'm saying that it's better for certain circumstances or people that have a lot of money. Question, what do you think of someone that in their 70s getting a plan with a funeral home if they already have life insurance policy? Getting a life insurance policy? I don't think you need another life insurance policy with a funeral home if you already have a life insurance policy. If you already have a life insurance policy and you're in your 70s and the funeral home's trying to sell you one, don't do it. You already got one, right? I don't think you need to get one from the funeral home. Let's see here. Oh, no problem. TJ, I got it right. TJ Jefferson, got it right. No problem, TJ. My pleasure. So, guys, what I wanted to do on this video is introduce the topic of GDP. What is it? Gross domestic product of the final finished goods in a country in a specific time frame. Our time frame in America and all over the world is quarters, right? Every 3 months, 4 quarters in a year. Right? Quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But it leaves out a lot of the things I mentioned earlier. It leaves out how the people are really doing, how the people are really feeling about the economy, right? The used goods, right? All the other things that are taking place in the economy besides these final goods, but they parade it out there for the public to see every month, either the advanced, the second reading, or the final reading of how America's doing, right? They roll it out there, sort of the report card on the U.S. economy, right? But there's more going on than just that. I want you guys to be aware of that, all right? So, hey, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. It's been over an hour. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. Do me a quick favor, very important. Smash the like button before you get out of here. Very important. Share this video. Share the link to this video. You could share it with your children, somebody who's 18, 19, 20, 25 years old who need to understand a better understanding of what we see in the economy, right? And don't forget 24 Laws of Money free in the description box below. My gift to you, right? 24 Laws and Principles of Money free ebook. And also don't forget Mint Mobile. If you're thinking about switching, Mint Mobile, solid, very solid. Let's see as I get out of here, guys. Funeral prepayment plan, don't do it. Don't do it. Your life insurance is going to pay for all that stuff. Appreciate it, Jeff, for being here. Thank you, SCG. I think you were first time coming in here. Fan of Brockton. Good to have you here. Salute to you, Sim Saya. All right. Salute to you. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on replay on YouTube, drop that comment below. I'm more than happy to answer it, guys, and I'll be here again Saturday, 11 a.m. Join me again. We're going to tackle another money topic. All right? Be looking for that as you scroll your YouTube. You'll see it in just a day or so. All right, listen. Hey, as I always say, as I end every broadcast, thank you so much for being here, guys. Keep your eyes and ears tuned to what's happening in the U.S. economy. The best person to take care of the old you is the young you. All right? You guys take good care of yourself and take care of other people. Until the next video, peace.